Tonight, police revealed that the murder of Anne Widdecombe is being treated as terrorism. Specialist counter-terror officers have taken over the investigation into the death of the former Conservative minister. Police say the dramatic development came after they learned of new information and evidence. A 28-year-old man is in custody. Today's announcement flatly contradicts previous claims from police that there was no evidence of a terrorist or political motive for the crime. Also tonight, Donald Trump reinstates the US blockade of Iranian ports and demands a 20% toll on all cargo through the Strait of Hormuz. The government here bans support for Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. Scientists say that the heatwave has caused thousands of excess deaths. Could Greenland's melting ice be to blame? We'll be there live. And it is one of the biggest rivalries in world football. We hear what they make of England in Buenos Aires. All that and more coming up here on The World with me, Matt Barbette. Good evening. Police revealed today that the murder of Anne Widdecombe is being treated as terrorism. Counter-terror officers have taken over the investigation into the death of the politician who served as a Conservative minister before she defected to Reform UK. Police said previously that there was no evidence of a terrorist or political motive for the crime, but new information has now come to light, as Dan Whitehead explains.
Arriving at speed, this is the moment police captured the man suspected of murdering Anne Widdecombe. From the start, this has been a fast-paced investigation. Now we learn it is being led by counter-terrorism police after the 28-year-old was re-arrested on suspicion of terrorism offences.
I can confirm to the House that this man was not known to prevent. The police have cautioned against speculating about the case. That is the right thing to do for Anne's family and friends. It is also vital that the police are given the space they need to carry out their work. Today is a dark day in our political life, but we must also use it as an opportunity to celebrate Anne Widdecombe's memory.
Counter-terrorism police took the lead after new information and evidence came to light.
While the forensic work continues at Anne Widdecombe's house down here, this has become a far wider inquiry. Counter-terrorism police describing it as a complex and dynamic investigation.
The police have now established evidence of some form of motive, which has now brought about the involvement of the counter-terrorism police. The motive will have been found, obviously, during the searches and such that the police are conducting, or through interviews with the suspect, so it might not have been immediately apparent.
This is an inquiry involving multiple agencies at multiple locations, with the focus on a suspect who may have travelled some 270 miles from Rotherham to carry out the attack.
So the police came outside, undercovers, went in, had a few guns and went in. Just arrested him, took him away, and then they waited all night.
Saw a load of police arriving, and then forensics come in with all the white suits on, 3 or 4 of those, cornered it all off.
Anne Widdecombe's death came just a day after she appeared on TV as a Reform UK spokesperson. It has re-sparked the debate surrounding the safety of politicians.
Just for the record, every member of Parliament is equal in the security to me. There is no difference between any member, I want to assure.
In the last 10 years, 2 MPs, Joe Cox and Sir David Amess, have been murdered. And now a former MP has been murdered as well. The threat is clearly real.
Political motivation for the murder had previously been ruled out. The head of counter-terrorism police says they are now pursuing multiple lines of inquiry to establish just why the 78-year-old was murdered. Dan Whitehead, Sky News on Dartmoor, Devon.
We've just heard the Home Secretary led tributes to Anne Widdecombe in the Commons today, describing her as forthright and fearless. Joining me now is our political correspondent, Amanda Acass. And Amanda, today's announcement from the police flatly contradicts those previous claims from the Devon and Cornwall force that there was no evidence of terror or a political motive. What do you make of this sort of mixed messaging?
Well, yeah, as you say, on Friday and then again yesterday, they said there was no evidence that there was a political motivation, though they did say they were keeping an open mind. Now today, it's been taken over by counter-terror policing. We're told that is because new information and new evidence has come to light. Now, over the weekend, Nigel Farage came under some criticism for effectively speculating about what the murder motive might have been, and that was after the police had asked people not to speculate. Then, after that criticism, Zia Youssef sort of leapt in saying, well, you know, don't speculate, that means accept the establishment narrative. So that's kind of the backdrop to how sensitive all of this is. But the Home Secretary, talking about it earlier, said, look, it's a fast-moving investigation. It's not unusual that the situation would change, and we all need to step back and give the police the space they need.
Sensitive and concerning for MPs, and especially their own safety. Immediately, people's minds would have gone to David Amess and Joe Cox, and that kind of stuff has been discussed a lot today.
Well, yes, and I think the Home Secretary was quite keen to get on the record that there is public security support and advice given to MPs from the Home Office, the police, the parliamentary estate as well. But she did say, of course, that's going to be reviewed. Every MP will hear from the police, and particularly support that they might need in their constituencies, where they're obviously a lot more vulnerable than they are on the kind of heavily guarded parliamentary estate, meeting people at events and their surgeries and so on. She also said that they'd be reviewing the guidance to people who are former MPs, of course, like Anne Widdecombe. And she did say she'd taken on board the particular concern from reform and offered Nigel Farage a meeting with this special unit within the Home Office that's independent, that looks after the kind of security of people who are particularly high profile. But this really does follow a very long-running row with reform about the issue of security. Nigel Farage said that's why he needed to accept that £5 million controversial personal donation from the Thai crypto billionaire Christopher Harborne. And then over the weekend, again, we had Zia Youssef, the party's immigration spokesperson, weighing in and say, you know, the government, the parliament, the speaker, they don't care about reform security. And I think that stung. That's why we heard the speaker intervening and saying everyone is equal and we take it all very seriously. But certainly there was, I think, a lot of concern raised in that debate from lots of different MPs about the threats that they received, particularly online, and asking what more can be done about it.
Thanks, Amanda. Donald Trump's announced that he is reimposing the US blockade on Iranian ports in the Strait of Hormuz, and he's demanding a 20% charge on all cargo passing through the busy shipping lane. Joining me now is our US correspondent, David Blevins. And David, this looks rather like you break it, the rest of us have to pay for it.
Well, he can try to get the rest of us to pay for it, but the reality is the Strait of Hormuz is international waters, so the United States has no legal authority to impose any charge on any vessel passing through it. But I think it is now fairly clear that 3 weeks after the United States and Iran signed what they called a memorandum of understanding, there has been a misunderstanding. Let me just take you to point 5 of the 14 on that memorandum. It states very clearly that Iran will facilitate the safe passage of commercial vessels through the strait. The problem is that President Trump never intended ceding control. That's why he has now taken to Truth Social to announce that he is reimposing his naval blockade on Iranian ports and coastal areas, and to claim that the United States is, as he puts it, the guardian of the strait in capital letters, and insisting that it's open. He says that twice, also in capital letters, because he knows the economic impact of it being closed. Crude oil has closed at $78.14 per barrel this evening. That's up 9.4%, the biggest one-day surge in more than 3 months. And not for the first time, the Iranians are mocking the US president. Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi has posted on X, POTUS is absolutely right. Whoever provides secure and safe passage of commercial vessels through the Strait of Hormuz should be compensated for this service. Iran has always been the guardian of the strait and will remain so forever. 20% is, of course, too much. We will be fair. Worth pointing out, of course, that Iran too has no legal right to impose any charge on any vessel passing through the strait. But clearly the war of words goes on, and the war literally goes on. US Central Command releasing pictures of strikes on a naval base in Iran overnight, the first use of sea drones in combat, and Iran retaliated by hitting US bases in Bahrain and Kuwait mess than they were when the war began, some 135 days ago.
David, thank you so much. Next, the Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, has also announced plans to change the law to deport Rochdale grooming gang ringleader Shabir Ahmed following his release from prison.
Our amendment will provide the Home Secretary with a new power to disapply Section 7 of the Immigration Act 1971 for serious criminals. This provides protections for long-term UK residents, but clearly should not be acting as a bar against removal in cases like that of Shabir Ahmed.
Joining me now is Fazana Sheikh, an expert on Pakistan and Associate Fellow in the Asia-Pacific programme at Chatham House. Fazana, good to see you. How's this going to go down in Pakistan then?
Pakistan officially has taken a very strong stance, absolutely refusing to consider the deportation of Shabir Hussain under any circumstances. That is the official stance. What we do know, however, is that there have been back-channel talks. Most recently, the UK High Commissioner Jane Marriott held talks with Pakistan's foreign minister, and I understand there have also been back-channel talks involving Pakistan's interior minister. But as things stand now, of course, Pakistan has said it is not going to accept someone who they regard to be a British citizen. This, they say, is a British problem, and Britain should deal with it. There are, however, also reports of certain conditions which are being talked about, quid pro quo, if you will. Pakistan has suggested that it will consider taking back or consider the deportation of Shabir Ahmed back to Pakistan on condition that Britain, for its part, considers the extradition of political dissidents. There are two in particular that Pakistan is interested in. One is a former advisor to former Prime Minister Imran Khan and a ex-cabinet minister, Shahzad Akbar. Another is the very prominent YouTuber, former military officer, Major Adil Raja. They've both been accused by Pakistan of trying to destabilize the country by spreading fake news. But of course, both are also known to be very fierce critics of Pakistan's all-powerful military establishment. At the moment, there's a stalemate between the two sides.
Fazana, whatever happens, it sounds like there's likely to be a higher price to pay for either country here. Could the ultimate price here be a diplomatic falling out, a deeper problem than this sort of bargaining that's going on behind the scenes at the moment?
Well, everything points to a brewing diplomatic row, if not a diplomatic crisis. And there are options that I understand Britain is considering. The Labour government at present, particularly the Home Secretary, is under immense pressure. And I understand that the two options being considered include, first, possible suspension of UK aid to Pakistan, and secondly, visa sanctions on Pakistani nationals wishing to travel to the United Kingdom. Both, I think, would be seen as, in some sense, exercising the nuclear option. It would go down very badly in Pakistan, which is already, through unidentified officials, made clear that it regards Britain's position on this issue as reminiscent of a colonial mindset, of colonial arrogance, and it has insisted that Pakistan today is a different country that will not stand for arm twisting.
Dr. Fazana Sheikh, really appreciate you joining us this evening. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
So breaking news to bring you now. Donald Trump has talked about Iran this evening, saying we're going to hit them hard tonight and tomorrow. He's spoken to a show called The Hugh Hewitt Show about this and seems to suggest there's going to be more military action this evening in the latest flare-up between Iran and the US over the Strait of Hormuz. Just to reiterate that point for you, he said that we're going to hit them hard tonight and tomorrow. More on that as we get it. But he's been saying a few other things as well in this interview. I disagree with Netanyahu sometimes, and I let him know, being another one of those lines that seems to be emerging from this interview with the Hugh Hewitt show in the US. Next, in the last few minutes, it's been announced that the number of British nationals who've died in wildfires in Spain has risen to 5 people, and planes have been scooping up water from the River Seine in an effort to put out huge wildfires burning in a forest near the French capital, Paris. Here in the UK, of course, we've seen nothing like that. There have been wildfires, but the heatwave is also being blamed for tens of thousands of extra deaths. Our science editor, Tom Clark, is in Greenland for us this evening. And Tom, just explain the relevance of Greenland and where you are in all of this.
That's right. Welcome to a rather warm and sunny Greenland. And that's relevant because Greenland is 80% ice sheet. 80% of Greenland is covered by a sheet of ice, about 7 times the size of the UK, 3 times the size of Texas, up to 2.5 kilometres thick. And as it warms, and the Arctic has warmed about 3 to 4 times warmer, faster than anywhere else on Earth, that ice sheet is melting. And the water pouring off Greenland ends up running down that river behind me. It's just one of the glaciers emptying into the North Atlantic, forming a big cold patch of ocean. And we're here to report on new research that's suggesting that cold patch of ocean is so large and sets up such a gradient between water warmer coming up from the south that it can actually perturb the wind patterns and ocean current patterns that steer the jet stream. And it's of course the jet stream current and where it is that dictates where heat gets parked in Europe. And we know that the heat wave that we've had over the UK and Northern Europe is part of a kink that's in the jet stream that's allowed Saharan air to rush up from the south and fill that gap, and that's what holds that heat over there. It's an area of active research amongst scientists, and it's quite a complicated thing. They hope it's possible to forecast, based on where Greenland's meltwater ends up, when future heat waves might hit, but they need better data. And the other part of the work we've been doing here is up on the Greenland ice sheet behind us with scientists who are trying to better quantify exactly how Greenland's melting. We know it's melting, we know water's coming off of it. How long does that water take to discharge into the sea? What route does it follow? Put those numbers into the big climate models we use to calculate future climate and what that would mean for future weather patterns. And they need better estimates, and that's what there's active work going on here this year in Greenland, a large investment by the UK government in deploying scientists across the ice sheet to answer those questions. And there's a second other really important reason they're doing that. It's on different timescales, but this is to do with the Atlantic meridional overturning circulation. That's a massive ocean current, which is what keeps Europe warm in winter. And there's also suggestions, a lot of concern about that shutting down or slowing down, shifting the climate much further in the future, decades, possibly the end of this century. But we're at this tipping point in Greenland, which is dictating current heat, but also future climate around Europe, and whether we might be plunged into colder weather during the winter, and despite all the global warming scenarios. So it's fascinating research that is quite critical now, because we need to get answers to best plan and strategize for what kind of weather we're going to be looking at in the decades to come.
Yeah, it certainly feels like that right now, Tom. Thank you very much indeed. This is The World with me, Matt Barbette. Still to come, World Cup rivals yet again. We look forward to England's match against Argentina, as I ask 2 experts, one of whom's in Buenos Aires and played football there, who will be victorious this time round.
hear that whistle and that crunch. We know that they're coming from the south of the city where there's a column of Russian armoury.
I'm Alex Crawford and I'm Sky's special correspondent based in Istanbul.
Look at that sheet of flames, and that has happened within minutes, and now it's coming from both sides and it's moving this way.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
I'll take you behind the scenes here for Election Night Live. They have gone up and up.
Being a Sky News journalist.
Ed Conway, Sky News, is anyone going to talk to us? Mortgage rates did go up very sharply during your time in office. Here it is.
First off, just the scale of what we're looking at.
Our data shows it's been happening. Question is why it hasn't been stopped.
Jubilation in the streets, while some emotional.
This is a political victory for Prime Minister Modi and his Hindu Nationalist Party. I'm Neville Lazarus and I'm Sky's reporter based in Delhi. Companies like these are helping India in its trajectory to be a serious player in space exploration. Sky News, get the full story first.
We're going to turn now to one of the most fierce rivalries in international football. It's going to be England and Argentina in the World Cup semi-final on Wednesday. England goalkeeper Jordan Pickford said earlier they were both proud nations. That's an understatement. Here's a reminder of what makes it so special.
Just rejoice at that news and congratulate our forces and the Marines.
Well, joining me now is former Argentinian footballer Matias Fondato, who saw Lionel Messi play as a 9-year-old, and also football writer Guillaume Balaguer, who's written biographies of Messi and that other great Maradona. It is good to see you both. I want to start with you, Matias. What has been the reaction in Argentina, not just to getting through to the semi-final by beating Switzerland, of course, but knowing that it's going to be England once again at a key stage of the Men's World Cup?
Hi. So many emotions in the last couple of days, and the fact that we are playing against England now because of historically being two big national teams, plus all the, the things that happen in history, like politics and all that stuff. So it makes like a huge clash. So after some emotional day, we're going to bring some more emotions, definitely.
Look, the history is there, and inevitably at this time, and I have to say a lot of people don't like it here, but it happens anyway. People start talking about the Falklands, what you would call Las Malvinas. Does it happen in Argentina as well? Do people start talking about Las Malvinas when they know that the football teams are going to play each other again?
To be honest, I'm not a big fan of it, and I'm quite happy that Scaloni yesterday in a press conference spoke about that. I think it was after the question of somebody who was trying to mention anything about that. He was like, listen, it's just a game of football. Let's stop there. It's just a game of football. And I totally agree with him. I don't think it's good to mix all the stuff, but the majority of the fans have this kind of, mainly the old people who lived through that period of time. Yes. Are, it happened in '86. It's probably going to happen again. People put that things in the middle, and I'm not a big fan of it, but it happens.
But also, Matias, just one more on this. Perhaps people don't realise there's a lot more that connects the UK to Argentina. I'm thinking about people speaking Welsh in Patagonia. I'm thinking about your old club, Newell's Old Boys, which is, of course, named after an Englishman. There's a lot more connection there than people might realise.
100%. Actually, I have a big one. I lived 8 years in England. I have English residence. So imagine I'm very, very connected to the country. So there are so many positive things. But, you know, history sometimes speaks by itself, unfortunately, with some unfortunate facts that we cannot avoid, you know. So, but as I said, I'm not a big fan of that.
But something we're not going to avoid, Guillem, is the hand of God. And really, when it comes to footballing rivalry, Mexico 86 in the Azteca, which is obviously where England just beat Mexico, probably one of the greatest goals of all time scored by Maradona, legitimately, and then one of the most controversial goals scored ever with the hand of God as well. People don't forget that kind of thing in a hurry.
Matthias is a pacifist, and he doesn't want to say some of the things that actually are happening. The players of Argentina, after the game against Switzerland, started singing, "Whoever doesn't jump is an Englishman," which is a way, it's the pantomime victim of many Argentinians is England, but also it refers to those that are not them, you know, separates them from the others. And in songs, in flags, in tattoos, Maradona is everywhere. The Falklands are everywhere. Because if Argentina have got something, see if Matthias agrees, is, you know, people say that football is the most important thing of the least important things. For Argentinians, it's the most important thing of the most important things. And also is a very rich country with a great history. But along the way, they haven't been able to reach that greatness that they expected. So when they have somebody like Maradona, like Messi, reaching the top of the world, not only they embrace it, they're kind of saying, this is where we belong. This is where we are.
But Guillem, as an outsider to both countries, really, do you think they're similar in that way? Of course, Argentina, very rich country, amazing exports in terms of its wine and famous for its beef and all of those kind of things, of course, and its culture as well. And England, Britain, really, is sort of, it's defined by former glories, I suppose. People might throw back to the empire of the 19th century, and we don't have that kind of thing anymore here. So do you think they're both similar in that respect of thinking they are a bigger deal than they actually are these days?
They both feel special countries. Who doesn't, in a way, but they feel really, really special. And in the case of Argentina, they like to separate themselves from the rest of Latin America. They say they are Argentinians, are Italians who speak Spanish, who would like to be English and would like to live in Paris. So they've got this European side about them, which is not like the rest of Latin Americans. And it comes from that, the sense that they are a bit different. That means that they've abandoned some of the parts of the history and they feel, yeah, very special. And also they come to defend the World Cup, not to win it, to defend it. It's theirs. And football is coming home as well. So let's see who wins out of those two.
Do you know what? No one's successfully defended a World Cup since 1962, when Argentina's arch rivals, Brazil, managed that. So that's a big task. But Matthias, look, when we asked Guillem before the show to sum up the four teams in the semi-finals, who are the four highest-rated teams in the world at the moment, he said England are two world-class players on form. But let's be honest, Argentina are just the greatest player to ever play the game and no one else in Lionel Messi.
Yeah, that's true. And we have another one who just woke up the last game, which is Julian Alvarez, who had like a great season, but during the World Cup, because he came from an injury, he was a little bit like trying to find his form. But as you said, we have the best one, not because I say it, just because everyone could see it with 39 years old, the things he's been doing in this World Cup, and hopefully, you know, he keeps going in this next game.
You saw him as a 9-year-old. Was it immediately obvious even then just how good he was going to be?
It was even more surprising because he was so tiny. He could see him like dribbling like everyone and scoring 2-3 goals every game and being like, I don't know, much smaller than the other players. So it's the same than now, but imagine like a little kid against kids taller than him.
It is remarkable, Guillem, isn't it? We've seen, obviously, Cristiano Ronaldo at this World Cup, and it was his last World Cup. He said that. But the fact that Messi can keep going at 39, and he isn't just turning up, he is dictating games, albeit not against the truly world-class teams in a way that others have had to play against at this World Cup so far?
You know, the last 4 competitions Argentina played with Messi at the front of it, with a context that allows Messi to shine, with everybody recognizing his leadership. The last 4 competitions they played, they won. The last 3 times they've been in a semi-final, they've gone through. So they've beaten everybody that they needed to beat. Okay, it hasn't been a difficult route to the stage they're in, and they struggled against Cabo Verde, they struggled against Egypt and Switzerland as well. Guess what? They found a way. And I've calculated that out of the last 15 extra times that they had to do in World Cup competitions or Copa Americas, out of 15, 11 they've gone through. So, okay, we look at them and we think, yes, they dare to be beaten, but they seem to find a way. And right now, the only way they play is let's make sure that nothing happens, and let's get the ball to Messi and see if he can come up with something. Otherwise, we've got plan B, which is Julian Alvarez, which is not too bad. So I wouldn't underestimate this side that doesn't impress, doesn't shine with the football. But they've got the best player in the world.
He is. And Alexis McAllister is good. And you're right about Alvarez, who apparently Arsenal are trying to sign. I have to say, just before we go, I've seen Messi play in the flesh twice. I saw him lost against Kaká's Brazil when they played in London in the 2000s. That was an amazing game when he was young. And I also seem to remember watching him play against Liverpool at Anfield in the Champions League when they lost 4-0. So who knows? It could be an omen. I hate to say it, Matthias, but it could be an omen. Whatever happens, it's going to be an amazing occasion. And when these 2 countries meet, it's very special. And we're grateful to you both for talking to us about it. Thank you very much indeed. This is The World with me, Matt Barbette. Next up, we'll discuss the UK government's decision to proscribe, to a certain degree, Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard as a terrorist organisation.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
Who's funnier?
Being a Sky News journalist.
A special edition of The World with me, Yalda Hakim.
Pakistan has the right to respond.
You're like, what?
Historic day here today. Congratulations, this is a huge moment. But what happens now?
We're going to return to one of our top stories this evening now. And while we've been on air, Donald Trump has said the US is going to hit Iran hard tonight and again tomorrow. At the same time, the government here has designated Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps as a threat to national security. Supporting the banned group will now be an offence punishable by up to 14 years in prison.
Iran and Russia cannot be allowed to use different proxy organisations to threaten security and safety on Britain's streets. That is completely wrong, and that's why we've taken this action. I have felt very strongly about this, particularly around the IRGC-backed threats for a long time, and that's why I pushed for us to change the law in the UK. That's what we've done now. That process is complete, and that's why we're ready to take these steps and designate these organisations to stop them threatening the UK.
Joining me now is Kasra Arabi, the Director of Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps Research at United Against Nuclear Iran. Kasra, good to see you. What do you make of this? Because a lot of people have been urging the government to do this kind of thing, this proscription, maybe in a different way, but nevertheless urging this for quite a long time, and finally they've done it to a certain degree.
I'm one of those people, but look, while this is a welcome move, the designation of the IRGC under the State Threats Act is not equivalent to full terrorist prescription. And that's because the State Threats Act is actually far weaker than the Terrorism Act, which is the standard method to prescribe terrorist organizations. As a result, that means the full spectrum of IRGC-linked activity here in Britain is not going to be covered by this designation. Specifically, by the way, its ability to nurture homegrown Islamist radicalization and inspire acts of anti-Semitic violence, which we know it has been doubling down on. So, look, a weak defense is better than no defense, but this is still very weak, and it won't cover the full spectrum of IRGC-linked activity on our soil.
And we'll come back to that in a second, but I'd just like to turn our attention to what is potentially going to happen this evening and tomorrow in terms of the US, as Donald Trump says in an interview this evening, hitting Iran hard. What he really means is hitting the IRGC, because isn't it the IRGC that, from the Iranian perspective, is trying to control the Strait of Hormuz?
Absolutely, and you've got the chronology perfect there. It was the IRGC that has violated this agreement, the Memorandum of Understanding with the United States, on multiple occasions by firing Shahed drones, the same Shahed drones that are being fired by Putin into Ukraine, by the way, at commercial vessels and neighboring Gulf states. This is because the IRGC believes attacks give it leverage against the United States. And President Donald Trump is actually absolutely right to strike back at the IRGC, because if these acts of terror, which they are not punished, if they're not, if we don't have consequences imposed on the IRGC, it will embolden this behaviour. So the president's made that right call, I believe, and we'll see those strikes.
Councillor, let me sort of wrap two questions in one, if you like. Do you think the IRGC has gone rogue to a degree from the Iranian rulers? We know Mujtaba Khamenei, who we haven't seen an awful lot of, if anything, since he became the supreme leader. We know he was closer to the IRGC and more in favour of them than his father. So do you think they've gone rogue? And if they have, what other things are they doing here in the UK if they act effectively like mafioso?
No, they've not gone rogue. They are emblematic of a rogue regime, a regime that has been rogue since 1979, that is the biggest state sponsor of terrorism, a regime that massacres its own population to uphold this Islamist extremist order. Let's not forget, 40,000 unarmed civilians were killed on the streets of Iran before this conflict, weeks before this conflict. This is a regime that has sought to eliminate, eradicate. It has an official policy of eradicating the state of Israel. By the way, the threat is not confined to the Middle East. It is reaching us here in Britain. Because this regime fundamentally hates us. It hates the way we live. It hates our way of life. It hates our values. Its slogan is still death to England, Mar bar Inglis. And it's not just empty words. It's been putting these words into action. Not only have we seen more than 20 terror plots foiled by MI5 linked to this regime, we've also seen them establish a soft power infrastructure designed to radicalize Brits, designed to nurture homegrown Islamist radicalization and incite acts of anti-Semitism. The key thing here is the state threats designation of the IRGC doesn't prohibit that. It doesn't prohibit IRGC flags on our streets. It doesn't prohibit the IRGC's ability to disseminate jihadi propaganda in Britain. And this activity is ongoing. So that's why it's weak. Now, a weak defense is better than no defense, but it's still a weak defense.
Kausar Arabi, really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next, a 45-year-old man accused of murdering his wife and 2 children in Bedford before fleeing to South Africa has appeared in a Johannesburg court today. According to Bedfordshire Police, the post-mortem examination revealed Nothabo Zandile Schumer and her daughters Natalie and Nala all died from blunt force trauma. Our Africa correspondent Yusrael Bahir has this.
A solemn first court appearance in Johannesburg. His eyes are bloodshot red, and his family are present and visibly upset. Ndodana Chuma was seen leaving London Heathrow Airport 2 days after the bodies of his wife and 2 children were found in their Bedfordshire home, with blunt force trauma listed as the cause of death in the forensic post-mortem. He currently faces 3 charges for their murder back in the UK, and while he awaits extradition, he faces 1 charge for the illegal possession of a firearm here in South Africa. The police told Sky News that Interpol Pretoria traced his location in Johannesburg before the red notice was issued.
We worked quite well with UK authorities, and we are still engaging them right up until he will be extradited back to the UK. So it's still going to be a rather lengthy process, but we are hoping it will be fast-tracked so that he is taken back to the UK to answer to the charges that he is facing in that country.
This is Nothabo, his 42-year-old wife. Her family says she was a ray of sunlight and a loving mother. Teenage Natalie is remembered as an avid reader and a gentle, thoughtful young woman. 5-year-old Nala is described as a vibrant bundle of life and joy. The painful reality of their loss was felt in the courthouse today, as Ndodana makes his second appearance in the courtroom where his extradition proceedings will be heard. We've just come out of court number 2, where the accused came out to face the magistrate. He will be held in custody without bail until the 22nd of July, when he appears again to face his local firearm charge. It was very solemn. There is a sense of the gravity of what he's being charged for back in the UK, those 3 murder offences against his wife and 2 young daughters. His lawyer briefs the family and then takes time to speak with us. Is he pleading guilty?
No way. None of my clients plead guilty. So let me speak to you once I get instructions. We are just chasing to make sure that the mother gets his property, the things that he had.
The family have told journalists that they will not be making statements to the media, only at the starting point of what could be a lengthy trial and ongoing cooperation with the police. Ndodana Chuma is staring at the long road ahead. Time in custody in a South African jail, then on to the UK for a triple murder trial. Yusra Bahir, Sky News, Johannesburg.
You're watching The World with me, Matt Barbeck. Next up, one couple fell in love amidst the devastation of Syria's civil war.
I'm James Matthews, and I'm Sky's US correspondent, based here in Washington, D.C. James Matthews from Sky News. Can I ask, why was Ghislaine Maxwell invited to your daughter Chelsea Clinton's wedding in 2010? Maria, did you offer to President Trump your Nobel Peace Prize?
I presented the President of the United States the medal.
Free, wherever you get your news.
Bang, bang. You can hear it hitting the windows.
Our houses are okay.
As bad as all of this is, it could have been much worse. Today, this land they call sacred is at the heart of America's electric car revolution.
Commute to sacred ground.
David Cameron says that you should vote through funding for Ukraine. What do you say to that?
I really don't care what David Cameron has to say.
Did you stay at the apartment of Jeffrey Epstein?
I'm not answering any questions about him.
I've covered some of the biggest stories in the world. Mr. Patel, did you endanger public safety when you said the killer was in custody? Mr. Hexton, does your past behaviour make you unfit to serve?
Escort coming out!
San Quentin houses America's largest death row. They rarely allow cameras onto the condemned block. James Matthews, Sky News.
It's one step closer to getting out, to getting off death row.
Sky News. Get the full story first. Mr. Trump, James Matthews from Sky News.
Hey, James.
Mr. Musk, has your ignorance and ego cost Ukrainian lives? Vladimir Putin calls you outstanding. What do you call him, sir? James Matthews from Sky News, Mr. Mamdani.
I have to be honest, when you said you were from Sky News, I just got very excited. Could you repeat the question one more time?
Well, hello, and thank you for watching.
Tonight on The Wrap.
We will be joined by the very best commentators to explain the how and the why.
He did know what he was doing.
Both agree on that, can we?
No.
You can expect more analysis.
This is going to get deeper. I think it's going to end up with Russia.
Is war inevitable?
What he's interested in is a deal. That doesn't rule out strikes. I disagree.
And laughs along the way.
Plus, a look at tomorrow's headlines. The Wrap. Everything wrapped up for you from 10.
Hear that whistle and that crunch. We know that they're coming from the south of the city where there's a column of Russian armoury.
I'm Alex Crawford and I'm Sky's special correspondent based in Istanbul.
Look at that sheet of flames, and that has happened within minutes, and now it's coming from both sides, and it's moving this way.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
I'm going to take you behind the scenes here for Election Night Live. They have gone up and up.
Being a Sky News journalist.
Ed Conway, Sky News, is anyone going to talk to us? Mortgage rates did go up very sharply during your time in office. Here it is.
First off, just the scale of what we're looking at.
Our data shows it's been happening. Question is why it hasn't been stopped.
Now, in December 2024, the world watched as President Bashar al-Assad was overthrown, ending the Assad family's 50-year rule over Syria. More than 500,000 people were killed during a 13-year civil war. In a moment, I'll be speaking to journalist Janai Bolu and cameraman Abd al-Qadir Habak. But first, here's a taste of their documentary. It is much more than a war story.
دورمتة حمزة
بس نتكلم عن الأوضاع في حلب بسرعة.
هذا يعني زراعة ما يسهل بس الحمد لله بدنا نعيش يعني.
إذا في الرشز وموجودين إن أكيد يعني بياخذون يعني بيتمنوا على هيك صور.
I'm pleased to say that Janai is here, Janai Boulos. We've got the little typo in the surname there, and also Habak as well. Let's go back to the beginning, Janai. This started with you wanting to make a film about what was going on in Aleppo 10 years ago now. So what happened?
Well, actually, it started in 2022 when I wanted to make a film about what was happening in Lebanon. And then when Habak joined me in the process of making that film, we decided to tell our love story that started in 2016 when he was in Aleppo, and it became Birds of War.
Because it was a professional relationship. You were working here in the UK?
Yes,
for the
I
BBC.
was working as a journalist in the BBC.
Yeah, and a documentary maker, and you got in touch because, Habak, you were in Syria and you were gathering material.
Yeah.
It's something you sort of fell into because of what was happening around you.
I mean, it was more about, like, the connection as a human in the beginning, and why, like, our relationship is developed, like, from like a professional relationship to a friendship and at first, and then like after a few years, like we felt in love. But it's more when I was in Syria as a cameraman, like documenting what's happening, especially like in Aleppo. It was for us, we felt like we are forgotten, especially like when we get commissioned by a news channel, like to commission a story. So when we commission a story, after that, it's like the news channel like just like move forward like to another story, and that is like how the media machine actually work.
Yeah, it's interesting because we have the benefit of being sat here, and of course colleagues go to very dangerous places, but they get to come home again as well. When you're there and it's happening in your home country around you, friends and family getting caught up in it, did it feel like more of a calling that you felt you had to document what was going on?
It was more for us as a court, because like I participated in the revolution from the first day, and because the Assad regime cut the international journalists going to the country, we felt like we take this as a responsibility to document like everything that's happening in our country, and especially when the siege of Aleppo happened, like we decided that like we're gonna document as much as we can, especially because we are documenting our history in Syria. We are documenting a war crime, and that was like so important for us. If you can see, like also in the film, like the camera keep rolling whenever I was. It doesn't matter, like it was an event or if we were like with a friend. It was really important for us to document that everything that's happening around us.
And Jana, it started professional, then you became friends and you cared about each other, and then you fell in love. And you both have, obviously, background in Syria. We've talked about Syrian Muslim, and your background is Lebanese Christian, which doesn't make it the easiest thing in the world. I think that's fair to say, isn't it?
No, yes, of course. And I think, you know, growing up in Lebanon at a time when we had the Syrian occupation, the previous regime after the civil war, we were raised a lot on discriminating against the Syrian, because we saw them as, you know, I grew up with Syrian checkpoints everywhere. And, you know, especially because in Lebanon, it's all of the regions are based on religion. So in my city, for example, it's mostly Christian. So we don't really get to meet or communicate with people from other religions. But I guess, you know, growing up and moving to London and all of these things, I started to see beyond that. And I think this is what our film tries to portray, is that at the heart of it, we're all humans, and all of these labels that we put on ourselves doesn't make us any different from one another.
And it is fascinating that your mum saw the film, and that was the real... She knew you were together, but this is where she learned that you had had a wedding ceremony perhaps a little bit earlier than she realised.
Yes, exactly.
What was that like?
It was always a bit scary telling my parents, you know, about the person I chose to marry and be with. And obviously, when I first met Habak and we got married, it was a very rash decision. It was an emotional moment, and I didn't know what was going to happen or what I was going to expect. We had an agreement that if things don't work out, then we will part ways. But obviously, for the first 2 or 3 years, it was difficult. Like we were still meeting each other, so I wasn't in a position to tell my family. And then slowly, in this time, we started to tell them until eventually we told them we got married, but not as it happened.
I love that the story will inevitably continue. Maybe make more films. And we were just talking before we started how Syria has changed, and you've been able to go back. Just very quickly, Habak, where can people see the film?
People can see the film in the cinema now in London, across the UK actually, and Ireland. The film has been like in cinema since the 1st of this month.
Okay.
And it's going to continue.
Fantastic. It's really great to have you both here. Look forward to seeing what other films you make together after such a great story. Thank you both very much indeed.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
That is it for this evening. We're back tomorrow with The World, 9 o'clock, of course.
Jubilation in the streets, while some emotional. This is a political victory for Prime Minister Modi and his Hindu Nationalist Party. I'm Neville Lazarus, and I'm Sky's reporter based in Delhi. Companies like these are helping India in its trajectory to be a serious player in space exploration. Sky News, get the full story first.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
Who's funnier?
Being a Sky News journalist.
A special edition of The World with me, Yalda Hakim.
Pakistan has the right to respond.
You're like, what?
Historic day here today.
Congratulations, this is a huge moment.
But what happens now?